Hi, I'm Aaron, and today on Hobby and Hustle I'm going to teach you how to make an arcade controller for your RetroPie.
For this project, we got a kit online that came with all the essentials. We purchased the SD card, but the kit came with a Raspberry Pi, an interface for the arcade controls, a power cable, jumper wires for all the buttons, and an old school joystick, and a bunch of arcade buttons. Side note here, the specific kit that we got isn't really important. There are a bunch of similar options, and our goal is for people not to get bogged down in the details when they try new things. To get started, pop your SD card into the computer. The very first step is to download or flash the operating system for the Raspberry Pi onto your SD card. The operating system is called Raspbian, and we found the download on the Raspberry Pi website. All we did to install it was follow the instructions on the site, step by step. Neither of us are particularly tech savvy, so don't worry if this seems too technical. If you can follow instructions, you'll be just fine. After Raspbian, you need to download RetroPie. This is the interface you'll use for the gaming console. The download and instructions are also on the Raspberry Pi website. Once you have the operating system, the last step is finding games. We'll leave this to your judgment as the legality of some of these downloads is questionable. But that said, a cursory Google search will lead you to all the games that you could ever play. The SD card flashing process can take quite a while, so this is the perfect time to get started on your controller box. To make the box, our first step was finding a template that we liked. A quick search for templates will lead you to all sorts, so pick one that you like and print it out. We always try to make these projects as inexpensive as possible, so when we can, we use materials we already have around the shop. And this time was no different. We decided to use some backing board from Aaron's comic book collection as the bottom of the box because it was the perfect size and it'll make it easier to access the electronics inside the box in the future if necessary. After we found some suitable pieces of plywood, we measured the backing board and cut a piece to the same dimensions for the top of the box. This is a good time to note that we are not pros in the wood shop and this is not a detailed video on box making. This box will work just enough for our goals, but you feel free to put as much or as little effort into yours as you'd like. After we made the top, we cut out some sides for the box that were a few inches deep to house the electronics. But before we glue them up, we need to drill the holes for the buttons and the joystick. We placed the template over the top section of the box and used a nail to punch the centers of the buttons. We also punched two centers for the start and select buttons on the front section of the box. The action buttons and the start select buttons are different sizes, so we measured them to make sure that when we drill the holes, the buttons would fit tightly with just friction. On the drill press, we drilled all the holes for the buttons, and after that we put glue on the edges and clamped everything in place. As Bob from I Like to Make Stuff says, you can never have too many clamps. Once the glue dried, we sanded down all the rough edges with an orbital sander and took it outside for a coat of paint. With the paint all dried, it's time to assemble. We just followed the instructions to connect all the components, and after a little trial and error, we managed to get everything to fit in the box and secured with small setting screws. Once everything was in place, we stapled on the backing board and it was ready to test. With all the components plugged into the TV, it powered right up. The RetroPie program should start up immediately and all of your games are ready to play after a little controller configuration. All told, this project cost us $73. The main costs were the Pi itself and the arcade kit. The scrap wood, paint, and tools were all purchased for or left over from other projects. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed our video, please be sure to like and subscribe.
If you have any other ideas for hobbies or hustles that we should try out, please leave them in comments below. See you next time.